the town of Winchester have recently turned down the selectmen's third attempt to pass a budget for this fiscal year. We will be at least 3 months into the fiscal year before a budget is passed. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? The budget has thrice been denied. Some will ask what we decrease the budget. Now some will ask that we decrease the budget. Now some will ask that we decrease the budget for a new budget to pass. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? If we want a fourth budget to pass. Others suggest that we increase the budget. Now others suggest that we increase the budget. Now others suggest that we increase the budget to get a fourth budget to pass. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? A new budget is long overdue. Some suggest that we borrow more money. Now some suggest that we borrow more money. Now some suggest that we borrow more money and place the town further in debt. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? The new budget will be coming soon. Others suggest that we need some more revenue. Others suggest that we need some more revenue. Others suggest that we need some more revenue to help the town shoulder the load. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Let's increase the revenue soon. Hello everybody, this is Brian O'Heron. Nice day, getting a little cooler around here now, but it's September 18th, 2008. And believe it or not, this is my 53rd show program. No misses, no duplicates, no real live guests, and no phone calls. So I'm very happy we made it this long, and we're going to keep on going. We have been in 3 different time slots, and maybe there'll be more before we're done, but we'll get to the election one way or the other, by hook or by crook. Today I want to pay tribute to a dear former resident, June Sinak, who passed away this month. June was a past volunteer from 1992 to the year 2000 and curator from 1996 to the year 2000 of the Winsted Historical Society, and a professional genealogist and volunteer at the Beardsley and Memorial Library in the genealogical department. As you'll see on the screen here, June was well known for the work Images, this book, a photographic history of Winsted dedicated to early photographers that used their primitive camera equipment to produce images on glass plates that Frank DeMars transferred to postcards. And you see those everywhere you look. You'll see Frank DeMars' old postcards going back to the early 1900s. Frank's daughter is still alive. She's in her 90s. And Joyce and I spent an afternoon here a couple of years ago at her home, going through all her photographs from her dad. She used to go around with him in his horse and carriage. She still has the camera that he used to take his pictures. He was more of an artsy type photographer, not a portrait man. And she was very nice to us. She still owns all the glass plates. I think there's about 1,000 of them, and her father's camera. Thank you, June, and condolences to your family. May you rest in peace. Now I want to go to the agenda for tonight. This is Selectman Week again. Comments. I'm going to make a few comments this evening. Notices, a couple notices, mainly about the budget. The budget itself, there has been a proposal agreed by the selectmen to send to the town, 4th town budget meeting. I think I have the date here for you. Then we're going to go through the selectmen major decisions, and again I've got a more brief version of it than I've had in the past, so I can talk more about other things. Town manager's report, very short this week. Major revenue opportunities, and then I'm going to go through the 5 charter revision questions. That'll probably be in the last 20 minutes of the program, so if you're going to flip off to watch football, baseball, basketball, or even eat your dinner, come back towards the 20 minutes to go, 20 minutes to 9, and I'll go through these questions with you. It's not something you're going to pick up the first time. There's a lot of study and questioning and answering and all that involved in this. I found so far in dealing with people in town, they don't know beans about this charter. They haven't studied it. Most of the people that even come to the meetings haven't read the charter, and they want to explain to them. So I'm going to spend about a month and a half here till November 4th explaining this mayoral form so that everybody clearly understands it before they vote. And of course, when they vote, they have to vote their own preference, but at least they should know what it is. And they should not just have to listen to the neighbor who heard it from a neighbor, who heard it from a neighbor, who heard it from a neighbor, who heard it from another neighbor, okay? And speaking of that, I'm going to put up my 4 little gimmick little pictures here, 3 little pictures now. I got a new one tonight. So first of all, I want to remind you that when the selectmen were elected, and we've been talking about it ever since, we knew that they had a hard row to traverse here. We have a triangle that if professionals and businessmen do things the proper way, you should be able to go down the triangle. The hardest stages are in the early part of the triangle, and it becomes easier as you go down, although it's never simple. And you do make a few loops in here because mistakes are made, or some assumptions change, or you can't get the right materials. We just had a little bit of that with the skateboard park. But this is probably 5 years here for us to get this town into what I would call reasonable professional shape, which is out of shape now. You know, I wouldn't put it in the ring with Cassius Clay right now because it would get whopped in about 2 punches, but it is getting better. Would have been 1 punch 6 months ago. So we have question mark years. Now, some things that we're working on in town, like the 1999 redevelopment plan, that'll probably take 20 years. So that triangle will be like 20 years long. And maybe 15, maybe 10, but it won't be 5, I can tell you that right now. Now, the wrong way to do it is to go backwards on a triangle, not do the right kind of planning up and decision-making up front, and then end up going this way, and you never get to the end, and that goes on forever, or until they abandon the project. So you have to do it this way, get the foundation right before you build your building, then you won't have to tear the building down to fix the foundation or spend a lot of money jacking up the building. Do it this way, and then you'll probably have to redo the foundation and spend a lot of extra money. This is a very expensive way to do things. The next little thing I want to show you, there were a lot of people in the select meeting this week. There weren't a lot of people. There's probably 80, 90 people there, as I didn't go to the select meeting, but it was talked about on TV and in the paper. But basically, again, you have the normal distribution curve. Most of the people that are making all the noise now, and it's within their rights as citizens in America, they have freedom of speech as long as they do it professionally and in the right manner. The people that make most of the noise and come to most of these meetings, you see the same faces all the time when you look on the TV set. They're the same people. Most of them come from Highland Lake, the East Wakefield Boulevard area, and other little areas around the lake. There are some from the town and other places, but the Highland Lake district, not just around the lake. And they're interested, but they're mostly down in here. They're in that extreme piece there. Actually, I should do the left side because I think it would be more on the left side than the right side. There's also a few people on the right side, Taxpayers Association and people like that. And then you have a lot of people from along the normal distribution curve, people interested in seeing the schools improved, people seeing Taxpayer Association people kind of go along this whole, they range everywhere because they're unaffiliated Democrats, they're Republicans and whatever else. And you have you have the lake people who kind of over in here because they're mainly interested in the environment at the lake and more so than perhaps anything else. So you'll see the same people there all the time. And then the other thing, I like to call it Noah's Ark because you usually get two. You get husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend or girlfriend and boyfriend. And this time I even saw some children there on TV. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But I want you to know that all that noise you hear and all those people speaking, most of them don't represent the majority of the voters. The majority of the voters are. There are roughly 1,700 Democrats. There's roughly 1,400 Republicans, and there's roughly 3,700 unaffiliated voters. So the unaffiliated voters are almost as many as the other two parties put together. And then I think when you get down into 50 to 100, then you're talking about the independents and any other party, I don't know, the Green Party or whatever they have down there. They used to have the Winchester Party. I don't know if that still exists, but that was very few people compared to the other three parties. So, and I think they're migrating a little now towards the other parties because I don't hear too much about them anymore. But so you got to remember, these are the people of the town that pay taxes. They're the people that are, and most of them delegated to the selectmen, all 7 selectmen. Some delegated to the minority, some delegated to the majority. And the only way we're really going to know what's happening here is at the next election. Right? So now you have special interest groups. So I drew this little flower-like looking thing here. And there are several groups represented at a meeting, like the meeting this week. One group is all the people that are interested in the plight of the planning and zoning chairman. They all are in that group. And some of them, they all overlap here in this little black piece in the center. So you got people that are interested and they overlap here with all these other groups. So you have
you have the East Wakefield group. They're usually the highest number of people at these meetings. There's probably 20 or 30 of them there when they're called by email or when they're called by internet or phone to come down to a meeting and support any particular one of 10 different things. And then there's the school group. Some of those school groups also are part of the East Wakefield group and part of the planning and zoning plight group, and they overlap in here, okay? And then you have the Highland Lake group in general, not East Wakefield, but the whole lake. They have certain issues. Some of they overlap in here, all right? And then you have the Taxpayers Association, which makes up of all parties, and probably the largest number of all these groups, and they overlap in here. And in the school group, you have principals, teachers, students, all kinds of things. So this little black spot here is what you see at the meeting. Right? Not all of the other area, all of this here. So I'm just bringing that to your attention because while all this noise is happening and all these people are expressing their opinions, which they have the right to do as long as they do it legally, then the selectmen have to keep their eye on the ball. And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight. That's why I put these pictures here. Now, as far as the notices are concerned, the 4th 208-209 town budget meeting will be held at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, October 1st, 2008 at the Gilbert School. The selectmen have unanimously chosen 5 questions to include on a November 4th, 2008 ballot. That will allow voters to change our local government, if they wish to, the voters. Once they become informed, then they'll vote one way or the other. They have 5 different ways that they can do it, and I'll explain those tonight. So they will get that chance, and they may not change the form of government, and they may change the form of government. So there'll be a lot of talk about that over the next 2 months. It'll be a run on par now with the budget discussions, and then when the budget's over, we'll still have this till November 4th, and it will be plus the national election, so it's going to be quite exciting. Plus we got the economy caving in on us all around it, so that's another interesting phenomenon that's happening right now throughout the world. And when America catches cold, or sneezes, the rest of the world catches cold, if you know. That's an old Wall Street expression. All right, budget, September 18th, 2008. I've already said that we're going to have this meeting on October 1st, 2008 at the Gilbert School, the 4th town budget meeting. Let's see, people go, you know, and they don't get many at the last one. Every time from 3 to 4, they probably get less than they got from 2 to 3 and, you know, and before. But it's getting important now. We got to get this budget squared away. One of the things I'll point out later, the town manager did get up today at this week's meeting, and his most important comment was that we are spending more money than we have in last year's budget to spend. Police overtime and various other aspects of the people that are here still in the budget but won't be after the budget is approved. At least I think there's one person in that category. So it's very important that we hurry up, make up our mind. The budget has actually gone up this time. So remember in my song at the beginning of the program, Joyce and I sang that some people want the budget to go up, some want it to go down, some want more revenue, that kind of thing. So this time it's gone up, and the proposed tax increase now is 0.91 mils. It was less than that last time, or 3.87%. It was 2.88% at the last referendum. So it's gone up about 1% here from 3 to 4. So if this budget gets approved, you will then have a 25.58 mill rate, 24.67 plus 0.91 mils, and that adds up to 24.58, and you will pay that on your taxes. That'll be an additional bill you will get once it's approved, if approved. It may fail, and then we don't know what'll happen if it fails. There'll be another town budget meeting and another proposed budget and another referendum. But I think this will probably take us a month or so to get this either approved or denied. So we'll be in the middle of October by the time that happens. Now, I'm going to go through this not rapidly, but a little faster than normal. These are the important decisions from September 18th, 2008, Selectman meeting. The excused absence was Selectman Liskin. He wasn't there. He had an excused absence. So there were only 6 selectmen at this meeting. The first thing that I have here is they voted to appoint Carol Grant, a Democrat, James Brady, unaffiliated, reappoint actually, and Francis Cooper, Republican, and Elizabeth M. Kelsey, Republican, as members of the Senior Citizens Commission. Now this is kind of balanced here. You see a Democrat, an unaffiliated, and 2 Republicans. And they were already on the commission. They must be doing a good job because everybody voted unanimously to put them back on it again for whatever term it is. The next was a vote on the motion to reinstate the Planning and Zoning Chair. There was a motion by Selectman Perez, seconded by Selectman Anzullo, the 2 minority selectmen, and the motion failed 4-2. The 4 Republicans that were there, selectmen, voted against the motion, and the 2 minority voted in favor of the motion. Absent was Selectman Liskin. Next was a vote to amend the ordinance 176, sale of town-owned property. We talked about this at a couple previous selectmen meetings, to conform to state statute. You almost don't have any choice. You have to do that. So that was a motion. Ham, Selectman Capabianco was a second, and it was unanimous. Absent, Selectman Liskin. I keep all these facts because they go into my database, so when I do my 4th quarterly report in around the end of November, I'll have all the information I need to compile the report in a day or 2. So that's why I do it this way. The next one is the vote to direct the town manager, Keith Robbins, to meet with the superintendent of schools, the town finance director, and any other town staff as needed to audit the Board of Education's proposed budget in an effort to compare the past spending habits, explain upwards pressures, and bring forward a proposed budget that is understandable and in the best interest of the town of Winchester. Also, to bring forward in the future a program of monthly accountability of the Board of Selectmen, Board of Education, and the citizens of Winston. I should actually say 4. The monthly accountability for the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Education, and the citizens of Winston. This is a very, very important decision that was made. Was yes, 4 people, again, the Republicans, no to the minority. It's hard to see how they can vote no when you're trying to get more clarity when you have a 4th round at a budget and may have a 5th. So I'm totally in favor of the town and the school system working close together so each knows each other's numbers and there is no confusion. I guess there's some difference in the way the computer systems work between the town and the schools, and it's very hard to get the kind of information that the town would like to see. I think, and I may be wrong, maybe they fix that now and I'll get it, but that will, if that's done properly, that will end a lot of the acrimony that we have in town, distrust that we have in town. And let's assume that when they do this audit and to get this reporting system set up and get this information handling system set up, let's assume that everything's fine, which we hope it will be. Then that will stop a lot of people from second-guessing the Board of Education. So that's good. Now, if it turns out that we actually find that there's some money in there that we could use in a different way, well, that's good for the town as well. So it's a win-win situation, and I think it's very important for them to do this and over time to work closer together and build a trust up between everybody in town and the Board of Education. There are many people who trust all the information. There are some people who don't, and it's very costly to us as a town, so we need to clear that matter up. It's got nothing to do with the integrity of the people. They're all trying to do the right job. They're all trying to, but they've been through 3 accounting people since I've been back here. So in the last 3 years, I think, or maybe 4, they've had 3 different accountants in there, finance directors. So there's something wrong with that. That's not good. Our finance director, Henry Centrello, has probably been here for 25 years. Now, I do know that in the Board of Education, you have to have special training and you have to have special skills, and there's maybe a lot of competition for those kind of people. But there's no excuse in the end. In the end, we've got to get a good finance director or use the towns, and we've got to keep them. And we've got to do a good job, and we've got to have more transparency, and everybody should feel comfortable that the money that the taxpayers are spending on the education is appropriate. Now, I also happen to know that other towns have a similar problem for maybe different reasons, but information does not always flow between the Board of Education and the town in a manner that everybody's happy with, and maybe it never will. I don't know. Now we're not even talking about Gilbert here. We're just talking about the K through 8 people. The next one is vote to reduce the 2008-09 proposed budget by $183,997. I could be off a little there, not much. I took it right out of the minutes, the preliminary minutes, so if they change those minutes at the next selectment meeting, I'll be off a little, but not much. So they had about, I don't know, 10, 15 votes here. I've got them on a separate paper. I don't think I'll have time tonight to go through those, but I've got all the separate votes. They're in the minutes. If you want a copy of the minutes, you go to the town clerk. She'll give you the minutes of the meeting on the 15th, and you can see how people voted and what they voted for. But altogether, it was 183,997 by various mixes of motions and voting. There is a separate list of the budget votes for September 15th, and I have it. I made it myself, and I took it out of the minutes of the meeting. So the budget will go up by 183,997 in this next vote. There was a vote to adopt the town budget in the amount of $32,228,570. Now, let me just say before I go on here, 175,000 of the 180 through 83,000, or 184,000 if you round that off, went to the schools. So they gave the schools back $175,000 to pay for a new finance director and some other things at the school. The town gave up a little money, not a lot of money, but they gave up a little money here and there. And that's we ended up with $32,228,570, and they voted to present that to a town meeting scheduled for Wednesday, October 1st, 2008. Mark it in your calendars, to be held at the Gilbert School at 7 p.m. And that passed unanimously. Absent, Selectman Liskin again. Vote to appoint Judith Dixon as moderator for the budget town meeting. Did a wonderful job the last 2 meetings, so I guess they're comfortable with her. It was done unanimously again. It always is. Next is be it resolved that the town manager, Keith J. Robbins, upon enactment of the proposed ordinance, is authorized to enter an agreement with the Winchester Housing Authority. Remember, that's been in the last few selectmen meetings. They want to get a little abatement on their taxes. So they make this the Winchester Housing Authority or its assigns for an abatement of the municipal real estate taxes on property to be developed as Carriage Maker Place, that's in back of the town hall, Winchester, Connecticut, to the extent required, so that the amount to be paid to the town will equal $4,236 for taxable first year, with an annual compounded increase of 3% from the second through the 15th year. And I guess after the 15th year, either they won't get any or they'll renegotiate. I don't know exactly, but that's going to be unanimous. And this was needed so the state can see that we as a town are as committed to this, any kind of money we're getting from the state as the state is. So they always like to see people. You know, when I was collecting money for the venture capitalists around the world, they always wanted me to put in some money because they said, Brian, if you don't put any money in, then it's just an exercise, So the state is the same way. That's why they give you 70% when they give you a grant, or 60% or whatever, because they like to see the town also take an interest and raise part of the money. So very important. That was a unanimous vote. Absent, Selectman Liskin. Vote to adopt the 5 charter revision questions to be placed on the ballot for November 4th election, 9/15/08. There was a lot of to and fro here in the earlier meetings, but here they have agreed what these 5 questions will be, and I'll read them to you this evening. And they did it unanimously. Absent, Selectman Liskin. 218, vote to approve the memorandum of understanding as presented by the Northwestern Regional Transit District. Unanimous. Okay, so that was it for that. And the policy, we had 10 policy ones, and we had no non-policy ones. And we're now at 195 and 14, and 93%. This percent won't change much now because it takes time to get it to go to 1 more percent when you get up that high. Business meetings business-like? Yes, 21, 1 no. Now, again, this meeting was like a circus, really. I think it lasted longer than most circuses. I don't think too many circuses last 3 hours, but this lasted 3 hours, and there were no executive sessions to the best of my knowledge. But anyway, there were a lot of people asking, talking during the first public comment, not the second, and there were things read from papers and all that kind of thing. But when you boil it all down, it was probably about a 40-minute meeting, and 40 minutes worth of work got done, and it was all good work and positive work, as you can see from those actions that were taken. The town manager, I'm not going to talk too much. I'll just say the town manager report was very positive. All the things he's working on are moving ahead. The skate park's probably done by now, and they're working on the green down in the center of town and all. So I'm not really going to talk much about that. But what I do want to talk about is the most important thing he said, in my opinion, during the meeting, is that because we don't have a budget yet, the possible budget overruns for the 2008-2009 fiscal year were presented, and they add up. I'm not going to go through each one here, but the most upwards pressure comes in the area of police overtime. We're already projecting, if we keep going the way we're going with police overtime, could be up to $200,000, and let's say there's $160,000 budgeted. So we're running 12-15% already. It'll be a quarter pretty quick. July, August, at the end of September, we'll have 1 quarter gone already. So, and that's how when you're budgeting, that's what, and you're forecasting, you look to see the trend, and then you try to say, where are we headed here? There's a spending freeze on, and we found out that the charter revision advertising and getting ready for November 4th will cost less because they switch newspapers, and the newspaper they can use now is much, much cheaper, less expensive, and will still satisfy the legality, state legal and charter legal purposes. Now, great news today. I went through a 3-hour meeting too, just while the select meeting was going on. That was called the Planning and Zoning meeting. Again, that was probably an hour meeting. That lasted 3 hours. Nothing against the people in it. I mean, there were all kinds of different people in there. There were two legal people, 1 from each team. There were two engineers, and 1 was a substitute for the normal engineer, Darren. So, and then there were the Planning and Zoning Commissioners themselves, who a lot of the papers arrived, on the day of the meeting or the day before the meeting. Some of the consultants hadn't seen them, and so that's normal though at these kind of meetings, and nobody to blame on that. But the meeting went on and on. I finally left. I left about 9:20, and I think the meeting went on to almost 10 o'clock. But the good news is that a special meeting was held by Planning and Zoning on Monday, September 15th, 2008, and I think it's being repeated on television because somebody was there taking video movies of the meeting, and I think I saw a snippet on TV when I was changing the channel the other night, to discuss the proposed Aurora Estates compromise. This is where Aurora Estates is suing us to the Litchfield Superior Court, and we've come up with a compromise that we presented to them. They kind of like it. We're working out the final details now. The engineers and legal counsel from both the town and the developer attended and positive movement was made towards a joint resolution from the legal viewpoint. There are still some things they have to look at. There were 3 or 4 points they hadn't totally studied and agreed, but they said they're probably going to be nits, and they'll probably be able to do it all right. So it's going in the right direction. That doesn't mean we won't get a surprise along the way, because you know, in business, when I was working in the big companies, my boss always told me, or the board, we don't want any surprises, Brian. We want to know everything. We want to know the facts, and we want to know the truth. Surprises are bad. So I keep that in the back of my mind all the time. Sooner or later, a public hearing will be held on this Aurora Estates compromise, and a decision will be made, one way or the other, by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I want to thank everybody for that. I think there's a tentative meeting scheduled now for the 30th of September. And if the 2 lawyers have their work done by then, and the 2 engineers have their work done by then, and all the commissioners are up to speed, then there will probably be a meeting on September 30th, and they'll try to tie things together. It might not happen during that time period, but or even at that meeting. And then somewhere in the next 2 or 3 months will probably be a public hearing, and then the planning and zoning people can make their decision. So thanks a lot for the hard work, everybody. And I did learn a lot by sitting through the meeting. Not much new. There was a lot of repetition from past decisions in there that some people didn't remember. But anyway, that's past now. So let's keep going. Now, the major long-term opportunity, I call this a long-term opportunity. I was going to call it a revenue thing, but I don't think we're going to get any revenues for a long, long time. Not in my lifetime, probably, and certainly not in my mentally aware lifetime, anyway. The Economic Development Commission, as promised by the commissioners and their leader, great progress is continuing to happen with the Downtown Redevelopment 1999 plan. Remember, I call that plan Lazarus because Bruce Grezik dug it up from 10 years ago, 1999, and talked to the state about it and found out there were probably some money available to get moving with that plan. So the EDC got very interested in that. They already had some things they were working on anyway, and it looks like that thing's making some progress. There was an article in the paper about it yesterday. It was very positive in the Waterbury Republican. You can get a copy of it at either library. They have a morgue there for these papers, and they keep them, and they have a history there. But this will take many, many years to implement, many years, 5 to 20. In my opinion. That's just Brian's guess. Somebody else will tell you something different. But it's a big, big task, and I'm not sure how much revenue it's going to produce. What it will produce is a lot of people probably coming to town and spending money, and maybe even attracting some kind of businesses to town that will benefit from that. So it's always positive. Certainly will clean up the town. Certainly the town will be a much nicer place to live. Certainly it'll be more business friendly to people, and so I'm wholeheartedly behind this myself. This will take many years to implement, but an initial plan for the first 3 years or so is beginning to take shape, and public meetings to explain the plan will happen in time. And if you want to know more about it, if you're interested, go down to the Planning and Zoning office. They have a one-page, I have a copy of it here somewhere, but one page of 10 activities that are going to go on in the future to move this thing forward. And it's everything from trying to get grants to talking to all the business owners in town and all kinds of things like that. So very, very good, and I thank everybody for that. And it kind of EDC, in my opinion, is, you know, has been kind of dead over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, they are doing things. We got the park going. We got the we got sooner or later the second stage of the Main Street project going, neither of which will bring in much revenue. They may bring more visitors to town for the concerts and things like that, and to walk up and down the street. But the real revenue producer to this day is still the big developments on the hill along the Route 8 corridor to Torrington. Okay, now in our last 20 minutes, just like I said I would, getting to the fact now where I can almost plan these things, get them to the time frames I want to see them. It's got 20 minutes to go or so, minus whatever it takes to end the program with the song. But I'm going to talk a bit about the charter revision questions. Number 1. This question will be on the ballot on November 4th. It might be not the exact same wording. I got this wording from 2 sources, one from the Waterbury Republican, always does a good job producing this kind of information, and very accurate and kind of trustworthy. And then I double check it with the city clerk to make sure the Waterbury Republicans got the right information. And I come up with this to present to you, which we're still not positive is the right information, because it needs to be agreed by the state. And they may come and say, change that word or that sentence, or take the whole thing out. I don't know, but I've never been through this before with the state, so I don't know. But the question is, this is the main question that will be on the ballot. Shall the charter for the town of Winchester be in, well, I'll read it exactly as it'll be on the ballot. Shall the charter be amended to eliminate the position of town manager to be replaced by a mayor, board of finance, and 5-member board of selectmen? That's a question mark. So when you go to vote on November 4th, you will vote yes or no for that question. The second question will be, shall Section 1108C, and I will read Section 1108C to you and its changes in a few more minutes, shall Section 1108C of the Charter be amended to require the annual budget increase of 3% above the preceding fiscal year if a budget is not adopted at referendum by August 1st. Now let me just talk a little bit about that question. One of the problems that we call it a problem. Some people don't call it a problem, others do. But one of the things that many people think is a problem is that it takes us too long to get the budget agreed in some cases. One year it took 7, that's the famous one, it took 7 tries. I don't know what it took 20 years ago or 10 years ago, but it took 7 times, and I think it went all the way up to March of the next year, which is almost the end of the fiscal year. And there's a big concern about that. So a couple things were done in the Charter Revision Commission. One was to fix times on a Saturday for each of the referendums, so that by 2 weeks after the budget is turned down at a referendum, you have to have the next town budget meeting. And then if it gets turned down and then so many fixed time later, you have to have the referendum. If it gets turned down, then 2 weeks later on a Saturday, you have to have another town budget meeting. So trying to put some time frames on that. Now, if that is agreed, which it might not be, then you should be able to get 3 of them in by August 1st, according to the calendar. So unless something pops up that nobody knows about. So that's why they say in here on question 2 that, let me take this down. That's why they say August 1st here, because you should be able to get 3 town budget meetings and referendums in by August 1st. And what a lot of charters do is they say, okay, if you don't get it done by that date, in order to keep the town moving and to manage the town properly, we will say we will increase the budget by a certain percentage and get on with it. You know, we won't have any more referendum or town budget meeting this year. Now, next year we'll go through the process again. Now, there's 2 sides to this story. One side is a lot of people say we don't want to have an automatic 3% increase. We want to keep on going and have more more budget meetings and more referendums. You'll hear that as you watch the television shows. And the chairman and other people on the commission, Charter Revision Commission, their logic was very simple. If you don't want it to be 3%, get into one of the 3 town meetings and cut the budget. Get enough people there to reduce the budget to whatever you want it to be, say 1% or 2% or 0% or minus 1% or minus 2. So those are the 2 sides of the argument. One is we don't want it at all, 3%. We just want to keep going until we agree a budget. And the other, we'll still have the advantage of having the fixed time frames for the town meetings, annual town budget meeting and the referendum, and then the next town budget meeting and referendum. So that will be of some help. But this has been separated out into a separate question because people know that this may be a bit contentious with people, and it may not be. We don't know on a normal distribution curve how many people agree with this or don't agree with it. When we go on November 4th and put it together on the ballot, assuming it's explained to people properly and they take time to learn what they're voting for, then they can make a decision one way or the other. So, and if it doesn't get passed, then you will still have the multiple referendums like we have today. So that's what that one's all about. And this will be a separate question. That's why it's called question number 2. So you could vote yes on number 1 and no on number 2. Or you could vote no on number 1 and yes on number 2. Or you could vote yes on both, or you could vote no on both. Now we're going to go to question 3. And question 3 is a very interesting question. Shall the charter be amended to include a new section, 313, section 313, which allows the Board of Selectmen to investigate any officer or agency of the town of Winchester, including the power to call witnesses and issue subpoenas, and to include a new section, 319, which details the appointment and removal of town board members. Since we've had this planning and zoning chairman issue, people have a certain amount of people in town have become very interested in putting more checks and balances into the charter so that that can't happen again. Yet another group of people, we don't know who has the most followers and can get the most people to do it, who agrees with just the opposite, and that we should not have to do that, and we should have be able to, as managers of the town, to appoint people and to remove people. And that's a contentious issue, so it's been made into a separate question. You can vote yes on that, or you can vote no on that, and still be able to vote yes or no on the other questions. So this is a very emotive one, and we talked about a lot over the next month and a half. My view is you should try to understand it, try to find out what the reasoning is behind it. When the Republicans are on their TV show, call in and ask them, why they did that and what that's all about. And you will certainly get from the other TV shows and people you talk to and the newspapers and whatever, you will get all points of view on this question. And some people will vote one way, others will vote another way, and some won't vote at all. So again, that will be question number 3. Question number 4 will be, shall section 1708, and I read that for you in a few minutes, of the charter be amended to exclude property owners from the definition of electors? That's a bit of a contentious issue too. Some people don't think it should be changed. Other people do think it should be changed. Everybody has their logic for it. I don't know what everybody's logic is, but the state statute has a definition of what an elector is, and that's what this charter wants to do, is use the state statute like a lot of other charters do, and to eliminate any confusion at the polls. It's not to stop people from voting. That wasn't the intention at all, because we want as many people to vote as practical. But there were people who wanted to get this thing squared away. And then, so try to find out as much as you can. I mean, I suggest that people hold seminars on this stuff and talk about it, and hold them at the university where we can talk objectively and out in the open, and we don't have people raising signs and yelling and dancing. We got to get past that and be able to talk openly. No matter what people's beliefs are, they should be able to have an intelligent discussion about it. So now question 5 will be, shall the charter be amended to adopt all recommendations of the Charter Revision Commission as filed in the town clerk's office, except those provisions covered in questions number 1 and 4 above. So the ones that are separated out, this is, you got your first question, which is, do you want the mayor or the town manager form of government? That's very simple. You got to understand what the mayoral form is like and why people want it, and you got to understand what the town manager form is like, which you already have that, so you should understand that, what its pros and cons are. In the last four administrations, we've had 4 town managers. And I'm kind of worried that if we get another administration next time, we'll have another town manager, right? And, you know, that doesn't give us any stability. Henry Fayol, one of his key points, as I talked about in this program, is stability. And as I told you on other programs, the average for our mayors here, the first 7 mayors, was 5 years. The average for the mayors in Torrington since 1921 was 5 years. Our average is 3 years. In Torrington, they had 11 or 12 mayors since 1921. Up here, we've had, I don't know, we're 28 now, I think, town managers, since we changed the town manager form of government in 1960, not 1921, 1960. So, or give or take a year there. I think it might be 62, I don't know, or 61, but it's in that area. Okay, so except those provisions cover there. So now you got 5 different questions. This last question, number 5, is for cover things like raising up, changing some words, putting in the he's and she's instead of the he's or she's, putting in, raising up some of the financial numbers to keep up with inflation. We can't hold people and create a lot of work because we're using 5-year-old numbers here. Just like in your house, you can't go out and buy a bottle of milk for $1 anymore. Now it costs you $10 or whatever it is. So if I only allowed you $1 to my wife for a quart of milk, you know, we wouldn't have much milk around the house. So that's kind of what we got with the charter. And then there are a lot of things the lawyer pointed out that are just not in sync with what the state statutes say. There's things pointed out where we have to eliminate certain things. We have to change headings in there because we don't call the same thing anymore that they used to in the old days. And that's all in number 5. So it could be that in the end, everybody votes yes for number 5 and no for everything else. They could vote yes for all 5. Or no for all 5, but it gets counterproductive if you just vote no on everything because a lot of these changes do need to be made. It's easy for people to understand the small changes. It's not easy for them to understand why a mayor and not a town manager selectman form. That's very difficult. Now, I would guarantee you that most people out there in the audience tonight that are businessmen and have run their own business understand the difference. A lot of people who haven't done it, you know, they may or may not understand the difference. So I do say that's one of the reasons why I prefer to see businessmen in as a selectman, because they understand these kind of things, and it's easier to talk to them about it. Okay, now I'm going to say what 1108C was. The old thing that's in there now, it says it's adoption of the budget. The old thing that's in here now says, in the event that the annual town budget meeting fails to adopt a budget, the town shall operate on a budget equal to that of the preceding fiscal year until such time as the annual town meeting at referendum shall approve a budget. That's what's happening this year. Now we're going into our 4th time, and we might have a 5th because we just gone up on the budget, and if we can't get people out to vote yes, we'll be back at the polls again. And again, I'm not telling you how to vote. You vote your own way. I know it's tough out there now, and yet we need to educate people. So this is a Hobson's choice here. There's no perfect way to do it. Okay, that's the existing way. Now, the new way, that's part of the questions, is 1108C, new. In the event that the annual town budget meeting fails to adopt a budget by the beginning of the fiscal year, that's July 1st, the town shall operate on a budget equal to that of the preceding fiscal year. In the event that the annual town budget meeting fails to adopt a budget by August 1st of that fiscal year, the town shall operate on a budget equal to that of the preceding fiscal year, plus 3%, and said budget shall be deemed adopted by the town. One of the reasons why 3% is chosen in a lot of these is because that's kind of what inflation averages over a long period of time, 20 years or so. Now it's up in the 5% because of all this confusion we've got going in the economic system around the world. But the average is about 3%. People tend to get 3% average raises or less, or some a little more, but on average, about 3%. So that's kind of why the 3 was chosen. There is a school of thought that says we should have said up to 3%. That might have helped a little, but we didn't. So that's where that stands. 313, a new section, that's the investigation question, separate question. The Board of Selectmen shall have the power to investigate any and all offices and agencies of the town for purposes, shall have the power to call witnesses to appear before the Board of Selectmen. A vote to begin such an investigation must be passed by a majority of the members of the Board of Selectmen. Now, I already explained this to you once earlier, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing again, but it's pretty long, and you can get a copy of it from the City Hall. We're kind of running out of time here, but it's the same thing I said earlier in the program, so if you have it taped, replay it. If not, get down to City Hall, get yourself a copy of these 5 questions, and you'll know. And then a new section, 319, the Board of Selectmen, powers of appointed commission, board, and authority membership. The mayor and the Board of Selectmen shall be furnished a written statement of qualifications and have the opportunity to interview all prospective members of all boards, commissions, and authorities. Now, I already talked about this one as well, but that's that question there, and it goes on for many pages here. It's kind of hard. So get a copy of that at the town hall, read it, understand it, ask people questions, call into the programs, do whatever you have to do to try to get an intelligent answer, facts on these. You can go down and talk to the town manager and ask him questions. You can talk to any of the selectmen and ask them questions. Remember, you always have to talk to the majority and the minority, and vice versa, because you will not get the same answer from both sides on most of the big issues. You will on some of the smaller issues, but not on the big issues. And then there's the definitions of voters and electors, which I talked about, and that is that question. That is whether we change that definition or not, and that's a little bit complex because you have to understand the state statute. I'm not going to go into that here because I'm not a lawyer, but you can ask anybody who knows something about it, and they'll tell you. So that's the elector thing. I don't have time now to read the whole thing. It's much too long. But what I want to say is that's the end of this program. I've given you enough information on these. You can see I could spend hours talking about this stuff because it's not simple, it's not straightforward. You have to make an attempt to understand it, and it won't all come in the first reading. You have to talk to people and do that kind of thing. So with that, I want to say thank you very much. And I'll be back next week where I'll probably try to talk a bit more about the charter, and I may show you some clips of the videos I took in another town and some interviews I'll be doing with people from a mayoral form of government. Thank you very much.